We cannot allow our native lands to be overrun by these radical ideologies.
Well, it might already be too late a little bit because we've seen some shocking footage coming from schools. And this footage depicts what's going on in children's classrooms, primary schools, and what they're taught and what they're dealing with here. Have a watch of this.
Now, I don't know if you were ever taken to a mosque when you were in school.
Mm-hmm.
Were you?
Yes, we are actually once. In primary school, funnily enough. Actually, in my last year. But it was voluntary.
Oh,
and you had
right.
to have parents' permission.
Okay.
And when we went there, and I can assure you now, it was simply about... It was a segment where we were trying to understand or learning around different things, but we did none of that activity that you've seen depicted in that video. It was just kind of going in and seeing, like you would go on holiday and see temples and stuff like that. It was kind of just going to see what it looks like inside and then come out. And we did the same kind of thing for Buddhists, but certainly wasn't like that.
Not like the actual prayers.
No, there was nothing like that. No, it was nothing like that,
Yeah,
dude. There was nothing like that. It was like you just went. It was almost like a sightseeing. You went to go see it because that was it. But that's as far as it went. You weren't indoctrinated into it, and you weren't carrying out those kind of activities. But it was voluntary. It was like a school trip, so to speak. But you didn't have these teachers here. Look, I mean, look at this lady.
Yeah, very beautiful. Yeah, I mean, we went for a school trip as well in high school, I think. I think it was like year 10 or 9. And yeah, it's the same thing. You know, we went to see the sights and I say see the sights. We were just kind of like spectating these people doing the prayers and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's weird because I didn't have it when I went to a Catholic primary school.
Yeah.
Very much went to church like twice a week, every fortnight, once a fortnight. Went down to a local church. It was very ingrained in Catholicism. We would pray, 3 times a day. We'd sing hymns. At the time, you don't understand the what you have, the sort of ramifications of that. Obviously, we're very lucky to have that upbringing. But in high school, went to kind of like a secular one. But I don't understand why they sort of disconnect the religion from the state in some aspects, because they're clearly not doing that when they visit, Islam or Muslim mosques. But yet they won't do it for churches,
Well, parents are demanding answers, and rightfully so. And this is not the first sort of instance that we've seen of stuff like this. Actually, there was a whistleblower with regard to a school as well, which we've seen, just forcing sort of Islam on them without the parents even knowing. And I've spoke about this before in depth and said, the worry I have, if parents are not being informed of such practices, is that we've got a teacher like this, and a teacher like the one we just seen there, pushing their ideologies onto the students. Schools, in practice, teachers should always be non-biased. They should be, they should just simply be there to give the studies, and that's it. You shouldn't be passing your opinions and your political beliefs, your religious beliefs onto a student. Because you think about when you're in primary school, you're a young mind, you're a sponge, but you're spending a year with that teacher. That then becomes almost like a second mum to you. You kind of looked at you when you were 5, 6, 7. You look up to your teacher. It was like what she said was gospel, so to speak. So think about the sort of the brainwashing that's going on here. And that, say your point?
I was just going to say, this goes into the indoctrination that's being pushed because, as you say, kids are more malleable. Their brains are more plastic. They're taking in more information and it kind of holds with them. And if they're being indoctrinated with this sort of radical ideology from an early age, well, it's very hard to sort of change their ways when they get older. So that's why they're so focused on targeting the kids. It's the same aspect as to why the LGBT movement is targeting kids as well.
Exactly.
It's because they want to infiltrate them at a young age, make that their identity, and then, it's so hard to let go of your identity as an adult because it's already formed.
Exactly. And that goes us on to keeping on to schools. And something that's crazy here as well is that teachers working for Orion Education reportedly told kids that Reform UK equals fascist. Lesson materials linked to the party to hate and xenophobia, even placing Reform besides the BNP and Nazis on the political spectrum. As a teacher, I've said this is a guy's opinion, as a teacher of 17 years, I'm stunned that this is what's being pushed in British classrooms. Since when did education become political brainwashing? Now, Dom, have a look at these images here. This is what children are now being taught. So as you can see, Reform UK down there. Some supporters do have some extreme views. Title, how can political lead to extremism? So they're just, as we're talking about children here, they're seeing a picture of Richard Tice here, and then they're using extremism. Activities that reject British values like mutual respect, are fully intolerant towards others, reject democracy as a means of governance, or reject existing social order, saying that's what Reform are, which is complete fabrication. But you're saying this to children. To understand the views of Reform UK and how they have influenced far-right and extreme views. To explain the impact of the rise of the far-right and extreme views in society and why this is a serious concern. To identify ways young people can remain safe online against extreme content. So they're already telling them from a young age, these people are bad, these people are evil, and think about it. 2029 is the next election. Labour are in the dirt, right? But they brought the voting age down to 16. Now, propaganda and PSYOP begins at school. So when these individuals get to 16, and the ones that are already in the school system now, they have been PSYOPed for the last 4 years when that election happens, that Reform equals bad. Reform equals evil, Reform equals Nazi, Reform equals this. So the only way, and they're going to push pro-Labour down the pipe as well. And this is a scary time because this is how they're trying to manipulate the youth to try and win votes. And this would be against the parents. The parents won't know about this. This is just happening. And then you're going to see a disconnect between a child and its parent and saying, yeah, we've been told at school that you're racist, rejecting their parents' views, etc. And that's how they're going to try and win an election, all with the situation with regard to bringing illegals in.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the main criteria as well. Obviously, you've got the indoctrination of the young generation, plus lowering the legal voting age to 16. But then they're also importing millions of people that they're probably going to give asylum and indefinite leave to remain, and then allow them to vote. These are all the playbooks of a fascist regime.
Yeah.
They're really trying to steal the election because they know the threat from Reform and other right-wing parties. The zeitgeist has shifted now. The Overton window has expanded, and people are allowed to talk about the issues that are causing the decline of the British nation. And obviously, government funded propaganda to like sway voters. It should be illegal, Dan.
Yeah.
It should be absolutely illegal. It's just classic playbook from left because they know that they're losing. We saw it obviously in the 2024 elections with the Democrats, how they tried to ship thousands and thousands of illegals to these like really low population states in order to swing the votes. We saw it in New York and California, where they're not allowed to show ID. They're not allowed to take your ID when you vote. You can say anything. As long as you just tick the box that you're a citizen of the UK, they will count your vote. So, I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens
that's
in the UK.
That's what will come into the UK because it's whatever we see that the Democrats do is usually the playbook for the rest of the left-leaning governments in Europe. And that's what we could see. And Keir will come up with something. As he said with digital ID, that you need to show this to stop illegals. He'll come up with something. I don't know how he's going to play it in terms of not showing ID, but there will come a time where he will say it. He will go, we want to encourage more voters. And people feel scared that they need to show their ID because they don't want to be assigned with a political thing, especially with digital ID, and we don't want to, expose what people are voting for. So from this day on, to encourage more voters in, we will now make it non-mandatory for you to show your ID to vote, so you don't feel scared to vote. So he'll brainwash the whole thing, and that's when the illegals that are coming in at the fucking boatload and the lorry load and the individuals that would just be shipped in during 2029 that are on holiday, you coming from Pakistan for a holiday? Oh, discount tickets to come to London for a couple of weeks. Here's 20% off your hotel. Here's 50% off your hotels, and encourage them to spiral themselves into the voting office to tick who gave them 50% off on their holiday.
Exactly. And it also, they use this type of rhetoric like, they don't have access to the same resources that other people have. So, we can't be discriminatory against poor people just because they don't have an ID. Well, last time I checked, every person who I know, whether they're up, white, black, yellow, purple, whatever, they all have IDs because it costs £25 and you get it in 2 weeks. So yeah, they try and like guilt trip you into saying, you want to make it easier for access for poor people, right? Well, no, I want to secure, obviously, the legitimacy of the next election. And if you don't have an ID, that means you can't vote. If you're not a citizen, you can't vote. But they're always going to swing it with this like suicidal empathy, this like compassion for people who don't have any compassion for you. And it's simply a method in order to steal the next election. And I would not put it past this current government, especially how they're polling now, to pull some horrendous tricks like this.
It's coming. It's coming. You heard it here on Point Blank. It's coming. Elon Musk has sounded the alarm already. I mean, the fact that, and we're going to get into Mamdani a little bit later on, but the fact that New York and California, I couldn't believe that it was illegal to show your ID. I can't believe that's even a thing in modern day modern day America, that you don't have to show your ID. Like, this is absolutely mental. Now, going on to your point there with regard to, you just touched literally on Starmer and his polling. Labour in recent polls, as you say, they're falling through the floor for numerous amounts of reasons, albeit the budget's we've got a little bit on the budget in a minute as well, which just shows more Starmer lies as well. But essentially, Labour in the latest poll now have dropped down to 4th in the party poll. So there you go. The Tories are now above Labour in the opinion polls, and these are very accurate polls, Dom. They're very accurate as to what's thing. As you can see, Reform 33, right? Cool, right? I can believe the Greens. Look at the Greens and where they are. God. That's mental. That's like far left wing. But my point here is, look at Labour, 15, and and the Tories, who were dead and buried, are back above them. That just goes to show how bad it's going for Labour.
Yeah, I think, if it was a two-legged race between Conservatives and Labour, Conservatives would win the next election. But
it's not the case anymore. But still, that's bonkers. And that comes through a lot of different things. Obviously, Keir's currently out in Brazil. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
And
no.
Basically, he's out in Brazil at COP, and essentially flew 5,000 miles to go to Brazil. To tell everyone that they shouldn't be flying around the world, and that's all he said in his speech.
As I say, not as I do, right?
Yeah, exactly. You need to stop. You need to limit flying around the globe, and that's what Keir was there for, despite the shitstorm that's erupted in the UK right now. And I mean, there's so much I suppose to touch upon with Keir. Now, the first point I want to go through is actually breaking news as we're recording this. And that is that Rachel Reeves now has confirmed plans to hike income tax in a chilling letter to the OBR. Rachel Reeves is said to have now told OBR she plans to raise income tax. Last night it was revealed the Chancellor had formally told the Office for Budget Responsibility that hiking the levy would be among the major measures announced on November 26th. This comes after Reeves and Starmer, in their manifesto, said that they wouldn't be going to be taxing working people, they weren't going to be bringing up your taxes. After the disastrous budget that was meant to be hard decisions last year, we've now come into a situation where, again, they said they're not going to put up taxes, but as we approach the budget in 20 days, taxes are going up on working people.
Hold on, Dan. Wait, are you saying Labour politicians are lying?
I know it's hard to believe, Dom.
My God.
I know it's hard to believe, guys. Shock news. It's a shock. It's a shock, I know.
My life is a lie. I don't know where to go. I mean, Schuber's asked these questions over the last couple months, Are they going to raise their taxes? Are they going to raise the taxes? And she kept kind of like dancing around the question, right? I don't want to, say anything before the budgets get released. We will make the appropriate changes to, this and that. Well, she's just lying through her bloody teeth. I refrain from swearing here. I'm quite emotionally charged at this. Tax is a major issue. I think it's why a lot of people are leaving the UK. And she sees nothing wrong with taking more from hard-working people in order to sort of fulfill her philanthropy and her sort of DEI agendas.
Yeah, well, the way that they frame it constantly is that, well, we're keeping to our pledge that we're not taxing working people. They're ruining working people by hiking up on income tax. Now, we've already got, what is it, 40, I can't remember the business expenses. My company isn't registered in the UK anymore, but I can't remember, there was mass amounts of tax anyways. It's very high. So
I'll give you a little rundown.
Go on then.
So after 50,000, I think you're taxed about 30% or something. So, for example, if you were making 100,000, you would be taxed 30,000 on that, and that's business expenses. That's not even taking it, or that is taking it out of the business.
Yeah.
So you have to do tricky stuff like give yourself dividends and pay yourself £1,257 a month and stuff like that. The whole thing shambles. It doesn't take half a brain cell to move your company to a different location and still sell within the UK, yet have the tax benefits of, a Dubai or a Saudi.
But what this does, whilst they might see it on the outside looking in going, right, well, we're taxing business people, right? Because left-wing lunatics hate the rich. They hate them, right? But it affects massively the working people because they can no longer afford to employ them.
They can't afford to expand their businesses nor take more risk in order to make, real massive jumps. And they can't invest in R&D that can create new products and new industries in the UK. This is why we're falling apart. The matter of fact is, they say they're not going to tax working people. Well, if you are able to get taxed, you are a working person.
Yep.
So regardless of if you're on payee or if you own a business, you're all working. And the fact is that if you own a business, the buck stops with you. These people put in 12-hour days, 7 days a week. Everything is dependent on the success of their business.
24 hours days.
Yeah, it's a lot, and they're the risk takers. They're the entrepreneurs. They're the people that are actually creating jobs. So if you move these companies out of the UK, you're also moving, 10, 20, 50, 100 jobs with them, which obviously didn't work out for Sweden and other places where they hiked the taxes. They predicted, all these massive tax incomes, and all the billionaires just left.
Yeah.
So
and
this
then
is what happens.
After the last budget, we had the biggest exodus in the whole world of UK millionaires moving on to other places. And now, unlike the United States, it's very easy to become UK domicile with regard to taxes. And I'm not going to make this about tax, but it's very, very easy to make yourself UK tax domicile and open up a company in Dubai where you pay 0%. It's very, very simple. It's a process of around a month. A month, $10,000 it will cost you to set up the company through a third party where they do it all for you. But what I'm saying is, after yet another hike, we're going to see another exodus of creatives. And the problem with losing your creatives is we're never going to progress as a country. And now, I know not everyone's going to like this, but the richest, I suppose, in the country are usually the creatives. Money's a byproduct of what they've created. We lose all those talented people to another country. And we're currently, at this moment in time, filling it up at the bottom with shit from the third world. So this is becoming who's dependent on the state. It's all the master plan.
That's the thing.
It's all the master plan.
They're dependent on the taxes that the rich currently pay. But with the tax hikes, they're getting rid of the rich. So where's the money going to come from? They're just creating the hole, and they keep digging themselves deeper and deeper.
And the next budget will be, unfortunately, due to the income tax not working, we're going to have to put taxes on workers now. And your PAYE tax is going to be increasing as well, and then on to working people. So it's just getting destroyed. And after her sort of pre-announcement of tax rises that she didn't give away last week, 22 billion was wiped off the stock market in terms of the pound. The pound dropped to the lowest in 7 months after this. So it has huge ramifications, what Rachel Reeves and Starmer's currently up to at this moment in time. But he's currently ran scared and out in Brazil.